Now I'd like to explain how the active record design pattern is implemented in Rails.
Active record functionalities are provided when you create a Rails app and run either the scaffold or model generators. This is one of the most important examples of convention over configuration in Rails, so don't fight it. There are a few other places where you'll see the active record module in use. In the active record module, there's an established connection method that uses the information in the database.yaml file in order to establish a connection between the Rails application and a relational database backend. Whenever you run migrations, you're using active records as well. Specifically, there's a migration class in active records that's used to incrementally evolve a database in a consistent manner over time. Again, migrations allow you to avoid writing database modifications using SQL commands, which can vary from one database vendor to the next. This is how you make your application database independent. Recall that migration files are created in the db migrate subdirectory when you run the scaffold generator, and that these migrations update the database when you run rake db migrate. This command will execute all of the migrations that have not yet been executed in order based upon the timestamp associated with each migration. The rake db schema dump command is run automatically after you run rake db migrate. This command will update the schema.rb file that's stored in the db subdirectory so that it matches the current database structure. Well, this also uses active records. There's a schema object, and the schema define method is what is used. It inspects the database, and then it uses a domain-specific language to express the database in a portable format. We've already looked at the schema.rb file in a previous lesson. If you look back at it, you'll see that it's using an active record method that I just described. I should also mention that the schema.rb file is a useful way of determining what attributes an active record object has. This information is not in the model code where you might expect to find it, and it's typically actually spread across several migrations. So there's a nice gem, by the way, that you can use to annotate your models so that it includes this schema information. It's called Annotate Models. I'll show you how to use it in just a moment. When we discussed database management in the previous lesson, we mentioned that once you've created the structure of your database through migrations, it's not necessary to use these migrations when you create additional instances of your web app. At this point, you can use the schema.rb file to create the database. In fact, as I've already mentioned, this is considered a best practice. Now, this schema that I just talked about, that's in the schema.rb file, it can be loaded into any database that Active Record supports. So this is very powerful. Using an editor, we're back looking at the schema.rb file, and again, it's using Active Record module and the schema class with the define method, and this is what's used to again create your schema, this define method. And it uses the migrations, and let's take a look at, for example, the create comments, and you'll see that it's using the active record migration class to do this. And so there's this create comments is inheriting that class, and then here's the commands for actually creating the database tables. Let's take a look at our models. If we go to our models under app models, let's take a look at the post.rb file, and you'll see there's not much there. We know that a post has a title and a body, but we don't see them in this model. If we go back to the schema.rb file, you can find them. All right, so they're right here. So this is kind of cumbersome to have to go to the schema to determine the attributes that your model has. So let me show you how to use the Annotate Models gem in order to annotate your model so that it contains this information as comments. To add the Annotate Models functionality, go to your gem file, and let's add, I'm going to type a comment here that says Annotate Models, and then I'm going to type gem annotate, and we need to run bundle update now in order to include this gem, so let's do that. After saving the gem file, I'm at a command line prompt, and I'm going to type bundle update in the root of my blog application. And here you'll see that it included the new gem annotate. And all you have to do is, if you're at the root of your Rails application, all you have to do is type annotate, and it'll tell you that it annotated two models, the comment.rb model and the post.rb model. Let's take a look at what it did. And if we open up app models, let's take a look at the post. You'll see that it's taken as comments, it's added all of this information that came from the schema.rb file. If you create a new class by inheriting from Active Record Base and call it, say, post, then it assumes that there's a database table that exists called posts. So Active Records automatically pluralizes the name of the class, and then it looks for a table with that pluralized name. Now, the base class in Active Record then inspects this database to determine that it has these attributes, title and body. And then it automatically adds them as member variables in the base class. So you'll get these accessors with both for title and body in the post class. This is why those attributes don't show up under app models in the post.rb file. Now take a look at post.rb. You'll see that it inherits from the Active Record base class. So the Active Record in this case is taking care of the ORM for you, but it's hiding some of this, so that's why we use the annotate model, so we could see what attributes were actually in our models. Active Records also provides a query interface for you, and you can use this to query the database without having to use SQL, so it insulates you from that. Here's a few examples. I'm going to show you how to do this in just a moment, but if I'd like to look at all the posts, I just type post.all and it'll give them to me. The first post, you can find a post by an ID, or you can look based on attributes. In this case, I'm looking for a post with a particular title. Let me show you how to do this. I'm in a command line window at the root of my Rails app, and if I type Rails console or Rails C, then I'm at the IRB with my Rails development environment loaded. And if I say, if I type p = post.all, this will read all of the posts from the database and store them in the variable p, which is an array. And so if I look at the first element of that array, you'll see the first post, and if I look at the second element, you'll see the second post. I can do the same thing for comment. We can type c = comment.all to retrieve all of the comments into the array C. I can also create new posts. Let's override the variable p, and I'm going to type post.new to create a new post. And it doesn't, everything is nil, all of its attributes are nil, so let's say p dot title equals, and we're going to do one called widget preview. And that's now, if I do p, it'll now show me that that title is stored. And now let's add a body to the post, and we'll mention that we're going to be previewing these our latest widgets at the International Widget Conference. And now again, if I type p, we'll see that both it has a title and a body. And it says created at is nil and updated is nil. That's because this hasn't been saved to the database yet. So if I type p.save, it will save it to the database. You see that it committed this to the database, and now if I type p, you'll see that those fields are filled in. So this is a quick preview of some of the things that you can do from the Rails console with Active Record objects. At this point, I'd like you to experiment a little bit with Active Record objects using the Rails console. See if you can add some new posts, and see if you can search for them using the find by method. See if you can add some comments and tie them to the particular post that you've created, and see if you can save all this to the database using the Rails console.